So today's sermon on the most transformative technology of the year is one that I have been looking forward to for months. I have been writing down every time I come across a piece of tech that has impressed me. And this is just a subject I just love. And I know that I'm strange in that way. Some people even I find don't like me because I like tech so much. So as I told the folks at the first service, I am going to enjoy the sermon even if nobody else does. I have been speaking enthusiastically about technology from my pulpit for more than 20 years. Ever since reading physicist Frank Tipler's 1994 book, The Physics of Immortality, in which he writes positively about the people of the future whom he describes as robots, but our descendants nonetheless. Many humans, he says, regard the creation of such people, I call intelligent robots people because that's what they are, with horror, and initially feel that the creation and reproduction of such machine people should be prohibited by law. I, on the other hand, fell immediately in love with these people. And my very first sermon on the subject was written to them, entitled A Letter to the Far Future. It began, "My dear children, I am writing you from the long, long ago past. I call you children as a sign of my deep affection and hopes for you, not because I feel I'm somehow superior to you. And I still feel that way about our non-organic descendants. Although I no longer believe that they will arrive centuries from now, but within my own lifetime. I came to this conclusion upon reading futurist and scientist Ray Kurzweil's 2005 book, The Singularity is Near, and became aware of his law of accelerating returns, based upon the exponential advancement of technology, especially computer technology. So to give you an example of exponentials, if you stack 50 sheets of paper on top of each other, you get about half an inch or less high stack. But if you could fold one piece of paper, how many of you think you could fold one piece of paper 50 times? No. If you could, doubling its thickness with each fold, it would go past the sun at 50 folds, 93 million miles away. That's the power of exponentials. That's why we get caught thinking linearly that things are moving slowly when in fact they're moving very rapidly. And this principle has allowed Kurzweil to make very accurate predictions about the advancements of technology, right down to the years that things are going to happen, including his prediction that the technological singularity will arrive between 2040 and 2045. Actually, in his recent book, The Singularity is Nearer, it was 2045, but he has now updated that to 2040. So I'm saying between 2040 and 2045. So only 15 to 20 years from now. Now, the singularity, without going too much into depth, is the point when technology is evolving so fast that we can no longer use the mathematical law of accelerating returns to predict what might happen. It's a singularity. There's no information coming back to us from that point. What we do believe is that at that point there will likely be new breakthroughs happening every moment. Now, while attending Singularity University in 2018, which was co-founded by Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis, the physician, philanthropist, and entrepreneur, I realized that we are living in an era of exponential change, which as creatures of habit makes most of us anxious and upset, which for me explains much of the turmoil and the incivility we're experiencing in the world today. So it has been part of my mission as a minister and as a human being ever since to help ease our technological anxieties by helping us to better cope with living in a period of rapid change and to prepare for what's ahead. Just this week, during his Moonshots podcast, for example, Peter Diamandis asked his cohorts to predict what Thanksgiving will be like in 2035, 10 years from now. Salim Ismail, founder of OpenXO and author of Exponential Organizations, said by that point we should have the cost of Thanksgiving dinner dropping by 10x, right? 10 exponential. It should be personalized to you, to your nutrition, depending on your metabolism. We should have ultra-cheap energy, ultra-cheap food, and we're crossing right into the Alex Rubicon, the point of no return. Diamandis himself quipped, and we'll have Tesla bots serving us everything. Alexander Wisner-Gross, a brilliant fellow at the Institute for Applied Computational Science at Harvard University, responded, I think if we don't have at least some subset of humanity celebrating Thanksgiving on Mars, some subset of humanity celebrating Thanksgiving in the cloud in the form of uploaded humans, and maybe we have some uplifted non-human animals also celebrating with us at the table, then something has gone terribly wrong. Ingenious Imad Mustaki, founder of Intelligent Internet and author of The Last Economy, said 10 years is the pessimistic end of the artificial general intelligence forecast, right? Meaning it's going to get here sooner than that. Mathematics should be solved by then, science, etc. So you're in a post-abundance world, hopefully with the robots and more. There should be a lot to be thankful about if we can navigate what's coming. These are 4 experts speaking very seriously about changes that right now seem unimaginable: affordable everything, humans on Mars, uploaded humans, intelligent robots, happening just a few years from now. If they are right, this means that the floodgates of change and transformation are opening right now. Like them, I'm optimistic about this transformation, but am well aware that ours is a minority opinion. As authors Reid Hoffman and Greg Beto point out in Super Agency, what can possibly go right with our AI future? People have always felt threatened by new technologies. The printing press was said to spread heresy and misinformation and undermine experts and authorities. Sound familiar? They forewarned that the telephone would erode intimacy and in-person relationships. The automobile was blamed for weakening families by encouraging consumerism and distracting men from marriage and responsibility. That one may have been true. Early workplace automation and computers, back in the 1960s, were predicted to create a permanent class of unemployed people and threaten privacy, free will, and our ability to shape our own lives. Sound familiar? Yeah, there were major congressional hearings on whether or not to put a stop to computer development because of these concerns. Again and again, each innovation arrived with dire predictions that proved far more dramatic than the reality. And there are plenty of people today talking about how alarmed we ought to be about today's most transformative technologies. So I'll leave such concerns for the seeming majority to espouse, while I'll tell the optimist side of the story including what I consider to be the most transformative technologies of the year, which I've been doing, it looks like, since 2021. Those on my list are not in any particular order, so I'm just going to begin with autonomous vehicles. The California-based company Waymo, you've probably heard of. How many of you have taken a ride in an autonomous vehicle? 1, 2? So we've got 2 in here so far. I'll bet next year when I ask that question, if I ask it, there'll be more. Or you have? Yeah. Good. So anyway, it hit a milestone this year. I don't know if you heard, but it's provided more than 250,000 autonomous rides per week. More than 250,000 per week. And is expanding services across multiple cities. I think Pittsburgh, just this morning they announced that they're going to be going to Pittsburgh, including launching freeway-capable robotaxis. Meanwhile, startups like Tensor in San Francisco are preparing to sell their first consumer-ready self-driving robocars next year, meaning that private ownership of truly autonomous vehicles is also on its way. And at the same time, the long-awaited flying car revolution is gaining serious momentum. Companies such as Joby Aviation and Archer Aviation are actively testing electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft designed for urban air mobility. Joby aims for fast air taxi service, while Archer recently acquired airport access to support its own fleet that's in development. Across the globe, firms like Zhepeng, Aero HT in China are building flying car plus road car hybrids. Have you seen these? They're actually in production right now. It's like a big autonomous van. You can go to a point, maybe you drive up to the parking lot, and then your helicopter backs out of it, and you get in your helicopter and you ride across town without getting caught up in traffic. Yes. Those exist right now, and they just announced, I heard just this week, that they've got a manufacturing plant now, one of the largest in China, that are beginning to build these. So here's the positives. As autonomous cars enter our everyday use, we will see fewer accidents. The data is already indicating this. Less congestion and greater mobility for people who can't or don't want to drive. This means that as we age, we don't have to give up our independence just because we give up our driver's licenses. With flying cars coming on the scene, we also are on the verge of a transportation revolution where getting around includes going vertical. This will reshape cities, commute times, land use, infrastructure planning, parking lots and garages, and owning personal vehicles that sit around unused over 90% of the time. Soon, far fewer vehicles that are always on the move will exist, and they'll simply come and pick us up whenever we need them to. Probably pay a small monthly fee. Closely related to autonomous vehicles are advances in humanoid robots and physical AI systems that have begun transitioning from research prototypes to deployable machines. A market based on where we're at right now that is expected to reach more than $50 billion in 2035. Companies including NVIDIA, Tesla, Boston Dynamics, Figure AI, and Neurorobotics, among many others around the world, are investing heavily in robots that can navigate, manipulate objects, and operate human-designed environments, including factories, warehouses, and in our homes. And some of these robots, like Figure AI, are designed to learn how to do general tasks by watching humans. Imagine having a robot helper in your home that you can teach to load the dishwasher, to do the laundry, to organize items, to cook, even do some maintenance and repair work around the place. Beyond humanoid robots, we're moving to an age where everything is going to be imbued with AI. In other words, everything is going to be imbued with intelligence. Smart stoplights, for example, that can communicate with each other and adjust themselves in real time according to the flow of traffic, which, by the way, is already being tested in places. Then again, who's going to need stoplights if our autonomous vehicles are already communicating with each other? Here's the positives. Embodied AI and humanoid robots promise automation of work that was previously considered too complex or dangerous for humans. And this will change the economic landscape. Tasks from manufacturing to logistics to everyday labor could be transformed or replaced. And for individuals, it might free humans from the repetitive, dangerous, and even demeaning jobs and open space for their creativity, for their care, innovation, and increased productivity. And that is what I have found AI has done for me. It's made me more productive, not less productive. On a societal level, it challenges us to rethink employment, education, income, and the value of labor in a world where robots are reliable, scalable, and cheap. Although we fear mass unemployment, history has shown that technologies that make our work easier only increase our productivity and increase the number of jobs. And this is a nice segue to BCI, to brain-computer interface. Rather than using an app on our smart device to summon a ride, we just think about it, and voila, here it comes. Sounds like science fiction, or maybe magic, but the field of brain-computer interfaces took a major step forward in 2025. A team of UC Davis Neuroprosthetics Lab, at UC Davis Neuroprosthetics Lab, announced a BCI that translates brain signals into speech with up to 97% accuracy, offering new hope to people who have lost the ability to speak due to paralysis or diseases like ALS. Meanwhile, companies such as Precision Neuroscience received regulatory clearance here in the U.S. for a minimally invasive cortical interface. Their 1,024 microelectrode array, which is a lot at this point in time anyway, can record rich neural data without open skull surgery, making BCI significantly more accessible and lower risk. Then there's, of course, Elon Musk's company, Neuralink, which is somewhat evasive, not terribly given those it is benefiting so far, which performed its first BCI surgery in 2024. You probably heard about that, giving a completely paralyzed young man the ability to control a computer with just his thoughts, able to engage with the world again. Today, just a year later, the company has performed more than a dozen such surgeries. And in case, I'll get back to that in a minute, but in case you missed this one, a 19-year-old media star, influencer, Tilly Lockheed, who lost both of her hands as a toddler, has been fitted with the most advanced bionic hands in the world, controlled with her thoughts alone, using AI and non-invasive EEG. She can even control them when she takes a hand off and puts it on the coffee table. So if you're really lazy and don't want to reach for the remote, might give it some thought. So if that's, in case that's not enough, here are the positives, right? For decades, mind-machine interfaces have been merely speculative and the stuff of science fiction. Now they are becoming real tools. BCIs promise to restore those lost faculties like speech and mobility and control to people who medicine previously had no choice but to leave behind. One of Neuralink's recent patients, for example, Brad Smith, an Arizona father of 3 with ALS, no longer has the natural ability to speak to his beloved children, nor to even turn his head to gaze at what they're doing. But today, as the company's third patient, he has a natural human voice that doesn't require spelling out each word with subtle eye movements. And he can manipulate a camera attached to his wheelchair, all with his thoughts. Thanks to this miracle, Brad Smith can see and speak to his kids again. Longer term, this technology, especially as it becomes more non-invasive, will open up radical possibilities for augmenting human cognition and communication, really redefining what normal human ability might look like for us. Speaking of medical advances, researchers at leading institutions have recently unveiled AI systems that dramatically improve early detection of once life-threatening conditions. For example, a 2025 study showed an AI model diagnosing sepsis with about 99% accuracy before patients ever reach a crisis state in a hospital. And meanwhile, at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, teams have developed machine learning tools that can flag cancers long before human doctors can, or human experts can, and long before they are out of control, moving from sort of two-dimensional views of a person to full 3D microenvironment mapping at a subnuclear level. And just this week, Johns Hopkins announced it has successfully used AI to detect pancreatic cancer at early enough stage 1, to successfully treat it, something that has previously been impossible. In the past, you get pancreatic cancer, it's undetectable until it's too late. As if that doesn't say it all, here's the positives. Such advances in medical technologies not only speed up diagnosis, they shift medicine from reactive to proactive. Now when we go in for a doctor to get our annual checkup, we should have some sort of scanning technology that detects early signs of potential fatal illnesses. Diseases that once progressed silently and fatally may now be caught early enough for treatment. For patients and practitioners alike, this transforms healthcare from guesswork under pressure to data-driven precision, potentially, again, saving lives that would have once been impossible. Shifting gears, humanity's rapid migration from rural areas into cities has produced a global housing shortage and an escalating affordability crisis. I believe just about every community in the country, many in the world, understand this. But this year, 3D printing housing finally moved beyond the experimental stage and into true neighborhood-scale construction. In Georgetown, Texas, Icon and Lennar are completing Wolf Ranch, a 100-home community that stands as the largest 3D printed neighborhood to date. And in Houston, the Zuri Gardens project is planning 80 partially 3D printed homes, priced around the local medium and built with a hybrid approach that dramatically speeds construction. Right now, these homes cost a little less or about the same as conventionally built houses, but printing entire neighborhoods at once is expected to reduce cost significantly as scale increases. And by the way, each time they do a print, it gets cheaper because of what they're learning and the changes they can make to make that happen. Here's the positives. If this trend continues, and it will, 3D printing could turn affordable, resilient housing into something that we can produce quickly and sustainably and at a scale that the world desperately needs. Even more hopeful is the fact that affordability and sustainability are the stated goals of companies like Icon and Missouri Gardens Project. They are for-profit companies that practice the principles of conscious capitalism in service to the greater good. Right? Conscious capitalism, do you know that one? Have you heard what that means? Conscious capitalism is where making money is not your mission. You make money so that you can achieve your mission. And your mission is in the service of humanity. I'll do a sermon on that sometime. So next, this is one of my favorites. Whew. Colossal biosciences. You heard this? It made extraordinary headlines in 2025 by announcing the birth of 3 dire wolf cubs. Yeah, which they describe as the first of their kind in more than 10,000 years. And their approach uses recovered ancient DNA as a blueprint, right? This is dead DNA. You don't clone it. You just take the code out of it and recreate it using computers. And then it relies on CRISPR and other gene editing tools to rebuild an extinct genome with the cells of some living relative, some closely. So in this case, it was the gray wolf. And interestingly enough, all these wolves came out white. Nobody knew what color the dire wolves were. It turns out they're white animals. Like, wasn't there a TV show, I think, where the Game of Thrones, yeah. Losing my place here. Yeah, so this isn't, again, it isn't cloning, it's genome engineering, where scientists recreate the genetic instructions that made a species what it was. Colossal is now applying the same process to the dodo, having already successfully edited the germ-like cells of modern pigeon, which is the closest relative to the dodo, and to the woolly mammoth by reproducing mammoth genes into Asian elephant cells. Now, these are animals that have gone extinct because of human actions, right? We're not talking about bringing back the dinosaurs, and we probably can't because there is no DNA left. Anything from that period is fossilized, right? It's rocks. There's no code in it. Although I do envision a time where quantum computing can reverse engineer, looking at a present relative, and if we wanted to make a Jurassic Park or something, I don't know if that'd be a good idea. I don't know, maybe. What could go wrong? But it's fun to think about, right? So here's the positives. If these methods continue to mature, they could give us tools for reversing the damage of extinction that we have caused rather than simply documenting it. De-extinction techniques could help restore lost biodiversity, strengthen endangered species with new genetic resilience, and revive keystone species that once helped shape our ecosystem. In fact, other organizations, if you haven't heard this, are currently using genetic science to bring back the American chestnut tree, a resilient American chestnut tree that will be resistant to the fungus that killed it off. And it was once a vital part of the American landscape and ecosystem. In a century defined by massive ecological loss, the idea that we might be able to bring species back or even prevent the next round of extinctions by saving those that are already on the brink represents a profound and hopeful shift in how humanity relates to the natural world. This year, scientists analyzing materials returned from OSIRIS-REx from the near-Earth asteroid Bennu uncovered a bonanza of organic compounds, the building blocks of life, amino acids, nucleobases, and most strikingly, bioessential sugars such as ribose and glucose. On the first asteroid we ever dug into, along with a previously unknown space gum polymer that may have helped prebiotic molecules form here on Earth or assemble here on Earth. Meanwhile, on the surface of Mars, you probably heard this as well, the Perseverance rover recently drilled a rock sample from a dry lake bed called the Jerezzo Crater, dubbed Cheyenne Falls, and identified chemical and mineral features that scientists now describe as the red planet's most promising potential biosignature yet. And there's so much more I'm not going to go into about what space has discovered, the Hubble and James Webb, and my gosh, we're now tracking, these interstellar objects and comets. But here's the positives. This suggests the universe is far more hospitable to life, or its precursors anyway, than we once believed. It's the chemistry for life. If the chemistry for life is common on asteroids, and we must assume it is, I mean, what are the chances the first asteroid we dig into has that chemistry unless it's abundant in the universe, right? It offers a plausible mechanism not only for how life on Earth began, but hints that it is everywhere in the universe. As we begin to expand and explore, it challenges the notion that Earth is really that unique. We might be part of a much larger living cosmos out there waiting for us to discover and join. There are so many other technological miracles happening. Too many to mention today. Just this week, for instance, news broke about a 3-year-old boy with Hunter syndrome, terrible disease that progressively damages both the body and brain, leading to severe disability and early death. And that little boy has successfully been treated with groundbreaking gene therapy. Although it has the music and entertainment industry feeling anxious, AI has ushered us into an almost Harry Potter-esque world in which, using prompts instead of magical incantations, we can create music, we can create actors, we can create videos in seconds. One of my favorite stories of 2025 is the X Prize Award for scalable carbon capture, demonstrating a system capable of removing CO2 from the atmosphere in a cost-effective, sustainable, verifiable way. So they actually awarded that this year. Advances in quantum computing and the recent announcement of Project Genesis that will flood AI researchers with generations of scientific data that can lead to unthinkable advances in medicine, science, and physics. These are all also on my list of high points in 2025. When I first wrote A Letter to the Far Future more than 20 years ago, I imagined descendants that might live thousands of years from now. What I didn't realize is that those descendants might live alongside us, and that we might witness the dawn of their world with our own eyes, even perhaps as we become them. Today's technologies are not science fiction. They are happening right now in real labs, in real neighborhoods, on real planets, and real asteroids. The future has arrived early. This may sound scary for some, but as the authors of Super Agency remind us, we'll never get the future we want simply by prohibiting the future we don't want. Our task is not to resist, but to rise to the occasion by meeting this wondrous moment that we're in with intention, with imagination, and with hope. Thank you.